I'm Chad Abbott, and finished up my master's at Starkville, research and extension associate, and just going to talk about some variety trials that we had, or the variety trials we had this year, looking at some rotational data, how it can help with the peanuts, and also some corn and cotton, and we'll talk about some growth regulator stuff we had this year across the state. There we go. And so we had 3 site locations, Starkville, Stoneville, and Raymond. We had 18 varieties this year, and these are going to be a pretty comprehensive list of what you can find that anybody can get their hands on, plus a few extra. I know we've got the top 2 varieties, our Georgia 16HO and our Florida 331 are probably going into seed increase for the 2018, so they'll probably be available in 2019. In Mississippi, it's a pretty unique situation where we've got some buying points that are buying strictly the high oleic market type, and then we've got some that are buying strictly the normal oleic, which is going to be Georgia 06G, which we're finding across most of our acreage in the state and across the southeast. And it's been a predominant cultivar for many, many years, just because it's got a very good disease package. It's a decent maturity. It's a mid-season maturing variety. We're looking anywhere between 135 to 145 days. The top variety, the Georgia 16HO, we had the 2 varieties went across 7,000 acres across all 3 of our sites this year, and it's pretty similar to the Georgia 06G in that it has a comparable disease package, disease resistance, along with the relative same maturity that we're seeing with the Georgia 06G. The Flow Run 331 it's a Florida variety. It's a high oleic, and it's doing better than our previous or earlier Florida varieties. And it's seeing that we're seeing a little bit better leaf spot disease resistance. Florida varieties are known to have good soil-borne disease package, but the downfall is that these Florida varieties are kind of late to mature. They're putting it in about 145 to 150 to even 160 days. And if you're growing in the northern part of the state, you need to get out as early as possible. And here are our Tough Runner 297, Tough Runner 511. We've been growing these a couple years now across the state. They perform very well as far as in the yield aspect. They are lacking in the disease standpoint, and that's why we're seeing some 331 is good potential for growers across the state. And down here at the bottom, we're working with a breeder out of West Texas and looking at some of the short season high oleic varieties. And we actually had about 500 acres of QR14 across the state that did fairly well on the field scale. They're showing a little bit of a yield lag in this early maturing. I think we dug them a little too early at the Starkville location. They're pretty close to 4,600, 4,800 pounds, but significantly less than our top varieties. But they are coming off anywhere between 125 to 130 days. We were planting it, you planted early mid-April and got them off in August. So to kind of help break up the blow and go of the harvest season, you kind of stage it out a little bit and wait for a good time, and you're not so busy. So I think they will have a fit for us. Maybe not across all the acreage, but they we did have QR14 went at 7,400 pounds in Raymond. So there is a yield potential there, and you could save us a few days in the early season or during the growing season, we'll be okay. And kind of talking about the disease package and looking at rotations, you can see this is early leaf spot. This was in northeast Mississippi. I think everybody's pretty comfortable with identifying early leaf spot. The characteristics are pretty evident right there in the picture on your right. But what's surprising is that these plants are so small and so young. This picture was taken June 15th. And you can see the plants are just now starting to flower, and maybe some early pegs, no pods. and we're already experiencing that much defoliation. This was a constant battle year long. These guys are having to come in and do the best to keep the leaf spot out as long as possible, but they're probably spending way too much money, more money than they have to, and that's all come down to rotation. These guys have been growing peanuts in this field for 3 years, 4 years now. They had leaf spot last year, and it exploded on them this year. And one way to combat that is rotation. So need to be very cognizant of that. This is late leaf spots on the underside of the leaf. It's dark spores on the underside, kind of a little bit different than our early leaf spot, which you find on the upper side of the leaf. This picture was actually taken in Northwest Mississippi this year. We are seeing disease progression across the state. We had pretty isolated. We were in kind of a honeymoon period for a long time. These guys are breaking these rotation cycles, coming in every year or every other year, not getting these fields a chance to rest. We're really seeing these leaf spot diseases really hammer across the state. So Clarksdale is probably our least hit area as far as disease pressure goes, but it's getting hammered with the late leaf spot everywhere around it. So it'd just be a matter of time. This is down south Mississippi, just kind of showing how the plants look very tattered and ugly looking plants has been ate up with late leaf spot. Kind of looking at these varieties and tying in with our leaf spot and soil-borne and foliar diseases. This is our Peanut RX, and basically if you look at the Georgia 06G, it's kind of in the middle of the pack for our leaf spot and for our soil-borne diseases. And the way it works is the more points you have per variety, the more susceptible it is to those diseases. If you look at our Tough Runner 297 and 511 on the bottom, they're a little bit higher on the upper end of leaf spot control. And like I said earlier, the varieties from Florida, they do a good job with soil-borne diseases, but you're having to maintain that canopy as long as possible, and especially coming in later in the growing season. Just something that need to be aware of with these variety selections coming in the future with guys breaking these rotations. And the Georgia 16HO and the Florida 331, Florida Run 331 have been assigned numbers this year, and will probably be on the Disease RX or Peanut RX in 2019 to kind of help make those decisions as well. I'm not going to go into this busy slide. I just want to set it up looking at how peanut rotations can affect the yield. What they're calling a 1-year rotation is continuous peanut. Every year is peanut. And then what we're calling a 2-year rotation is peanut every other year. A 3-year rotation was peanut every 3 years, looking at either corn and cotton and peanut, or a 4-year rotation where we had every 4th year was peanuts. It would be corn, cotton, or a weedy fallow. And this picture's graph's pretty self-explanatory. 2013, 2014 average, just going 1 year out of peanut, you're looking at almost a 1,900 pound yield increase from continuous peanut. Looking at a 3-year rotation cycle with corn and cotton, you're looking at a 2,300 pound increase in 4 years is very similar. Now this data comes out of a very disease intensive area, South Georgia, where this data was pulled from. It may not be quite as expansive or as drastic in Mississippi. We're not quite to that point, but if we keep breaking these rotation cycles, it won't take us long. Looking at some nematode numbers with corn after corn, corn after cotton, and then corn after peanut. Our the nematode numbers on the left, on the y-axis, looking at per 100 cubic centimeters of soil, and our years on the crossel x-axis. And 3 out of 4 years, we had a significant reduction in nematode numbers following corn behind peanut. Looking at some yield, we'll look at the same format, yields on our y-axis with years across the x-axis. And 2 out of 4 years, we had a significant yield improvement across corn after our peanut, looking at instead of corn after cotton, corn after corn. Numerically, it kind of followed the same pattern, just the way the stats worked out. Kind of talk about our growth regulators. This is what we had across the state this year. Growth regulator, prohexadione and calcium. It's a BASF product known as Apogee. Should be coming off patent this year. It costs about $60 per acre, which is an expensive product. The rate is looking at 7.25 ounces to the acre at 50% vine lap, and then followed up at 100% vine lap, the second full rate application. We had 3 locations across the state in Clarksdale, Holmes County, and down in Forest County, close to Hattiesburg. And the Coahoma County irrigation or system was a single row on 40-inch beds, furrow irrigated. Our Holmes County location was 30-inch row spacing, single rows, furrow irrigated, and our Forest County location was twin row, 38-inch row spacing with a center pivot. So we kind of tackled what you're going to come across the state as far as grower practices. And the research was set up. We had a half X rate, a 3/4 X rate, a 1 X rate, and then our untreated. Our application timing was done at 50% vine lap, and then 2 weeks after at each location. There's some pictures kind of illustrating what you might see or might expect during the growing season after an apogee application. Picture on your left is our initial timing at Forest County. You can see some bare soil. We were about 2, maybe 3 days away from a complete vine lap, which we'd call a true 50%. But I think this is about as close as we could get to a good timing. In the yield, I think from the yield aspect, I think we timed it just about as good as we could. The picture in the middle was 2 weeks after our 1X application. You can see the twin rows in the middle. You've got good canopy structure. And the picture on the right is taken the same day at Forest County, and it's basically a complete flat level surface. There's no defined rows, and it's just kind of like a front yard. So, picture on your left is just looking at some plant heights. I'll talk about some data here in a second, but you can see that the untreated, the unsprayed, we're looking at 2 foot, and the picture on the left, or the plot to your left, I mean, it's very defined row. Characteristics, we're looking at about 15 to 16 inches as far as plant canopy height, right next to me row to row. Picture on the right, you can see we've got clear defined rows, and just to the left of the dark green is our untreated. So it's about there's no canopy structure, it's just a flat playing field. I'm not really going to talk about plant biomass. We did have some reduction, pod biomass, nothing there. But what is striking is the plant heights, which follow along with our apogee application rates. Each rate was significant from the untreated. Anywhere between 3 to 4 inches in height reduction, which can improve your harvest efficiency as well. Just jumping right into yield, all 3 applications were significantly better than our untreated. The half X rate was 500 pounds. 3/4 X rate was about 700-800 pounds, and then our 1X rate was about 600 pounds. And this is across all 3 locations we had this year. To kind of talk about our economics, what's the bottom line here? I said that the application cost $60 an acre for a 1X rate. 3/4 X rate was $45, and then a half X rate was $30. And this is just the product application. This is not cost of labor and fuel for your tractor. Just to kind of simplify things, we based this on a 475 ton market price, or at 24 cents a pound. And so you need 250 pounds per acre to break even at a 1X rate. And we ended up with about 600 pounds above our untreated at a 1X rate. It gave us a $91 increase in return on investment just on our application, the cost of the application. Our 3/4 X rate was our best return on investment, $132 to the acre. You got to make 188 pounds higher than your untreated control to break even. We had 738 pounds of total yield increase, which left us that profit of $132 to the acre. In our half X rate, got to make 125 pounds increase to just break even, and we came out with an $85 increase per acre. So just to kind of wrap things up, as far as conclusions and questions, the economics are based on 1 year at 3 locations, and effect on digging, drying, harvest efficiency. If you guys are I'm sure everybody's running GPS nowadays, so the history of Apogee came on as just to increase the digging efficiency prior to GPS, so you can stay on your row. It makes it hard to validate with the GPS cost, and you stay on your row. Or we're seeing the benefit after this 1 year. We're seeing positive results. You reduce your overall plant biomass. That's less time that you have to dry those vines down. You can get back in the field and harvest a little quicker. The combine is not having to go through all those vines, and it's less wear and tear on your equipment. What we don't know is, does it perform the same way with fungicides, insecticides, herbicides? When we were spraying, we sprayed it. It's our Apogee crop oil at a quart crop oil and a pint of UAN to the acre, and that was always sprayed. It was just a separate application. So something to look at in the future. Can we tank mix it with these other things? If you run a crop oil with your fungicides, or you run into you fight a toxicity. And all these sites were irrigated. We don't know how it'll affect it. Will it perform the same way on a dry land situation? We had good rainfall across the state, and so we had a good growing season. It may perform not as well if we were in a drier situation. Your plants aren't growing as vigorously, and it's a variety dependent. We did have across 06G, we had it on 511 and 297, so we had it across 3 varieties this year, and it performed overall as fairly similar. So that may or may not be the question, and we've got some of these Florida varieties that produce a lot of rank growth, and we're on these very productive soils across the state. That Forest County location, they runs chicken litter every year, so his soil fertility program is optimized, and anyway, that's about all we got. Any questions, comments?
What would you consider your top 2 high oleic peanut varieties for central Mississippi Delta?
Top 2 varieties for high oleic we're going to be our 511 and 297. The Flow Run 331 we're looking at showing promise. It's in that Georgia 16 HO. Those are coming on very strong in our variety trials, OVT. So
pretty much of them this year.
Oh, they're going into seed increase this year, so they're not available in 2018, but they'll probably be available for 2019. But as far as your high oleics go, you're going to look at your 297, 511. They performed very well on the yield standpoint for growers in Mississippi. Up next, we got Jeff Gore, and he's going to finish us out strong.